Representative Cantrell. Love being here with y'all today. When I heard about this event, I said I'll do whatever I can to change my schedule to talk about education, especially educational freedom. I am someone that was blessed by a good education. I grew up in the public school system, state university, but I grew up knowing that your zip code should not determine the outcome of your life. Still today, the zip code that I was raised in, 61774, the average income of a family is $65,000. The average value of a home where I grew up today is $103,000. Okay, I was blessed to have a great educational experience, but not every child is having that. Now that was 40, 50 years ago, okay? But I have to tell you why I'm here is because I believe so strongly that zip codes should not determine the quality of education. And that's what we're fighting for here today. How many parents do we have in the audience? Almost everyone. God bless you. I love that parents are the new force in voting and turning out and determining policy, because one of the things that we have found is that exactly what Abraham Lincoln said about education is that what you learn in the classroom in one generation becomes the philosophy of the government in the next generation. And that is so true, and it's such an eye-opener. And it's also true what Nelson Mandela said, which is education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And that's what's at stake here. So it's incredibly powerful to think about this moment being a chance to take back our country, to take back our children's futures through the education system, which is entirely within our grasp. And not a day goes by that I don't hear from parents saying, you can't believe what happened in my kid's school today. You can't believe what I saw. The survey that we had to fill out, where's the data go? The lists that the parents have been put on. And I'm just so grateful to the work that you're doing, Corey, and everyone across the country in speaking up, and parents in their local work, because I have to tell you, I know from serving time in Washington, everything good that happens locally. And that is so critical that we stay involved at the local level, because that's where real change happens. That's where real conversations can occur. It's why I started an effort in Georgia to do ground game work, because further contact, having those conversations with your neighbors is more powerful than any commercial or ad that can run on TV. And I know we're all tired of that. There's all the days to go. But, let me tell you another thing about my education. It equipped me, a kid whose first job was working in my parents' field starting at the age of 8. I filled out a time card for that. That was parental involvement. Even outside of school, talk about my parents teaching me a great lesson about accountability. And then I went on to waitress for 6 years. And 25 years later, after getting my first official job in the workforce as a waitress, I became a member of the executive leadership team at the New York Stock Exchange. None of that would have been possible without my education. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I went on to get a graduate degree. I paid off that student loan through success in the workforce. And I have to say, this is the pathway to the American dream. It requires hard work and sacrifice, but as you know, not just on the part of the student, but on the part of the parents. So I just want to encourage you and thank you for doing that work. It changes lives, and it will change lives of children around you. Whether I'm across Georgia or going across the country, I just see it, that the energy is with the parents, and it's so encouraging. So I just want to say that I pray for parents, I pray for our schools, I pray for our teachers, because they are such an important part of this equation. And I pray that our state will continue to pass great legislation that grows our options for school choice right here in Georgia. So I just want to encourage you to keep the dialogue going, to believe in your effort, because I'll tell you, part of being involved in policy and politics, and this is not political, but it becomes politicized, it's the highs and lows, it's the ups and downs. And that is a fact of it. And if you're not getting pushback, then maybe you're not pushing education hard enough. So I think that that's part of the challenge we have today. I'll tell you one of the blessings I have today is to be able to introduce Congressman BYRON, a good friend of mine. I have to tell you, he's been great for this state, though he's the Florida congressman from the 19th district. He spent time with us in the Senate runoff in 2021. He's been back to talk to our legislators recently. He almost needs no introduction within school choice circles. He's a longtime proponent of educational freedom, of funding students, not systems. And he has a personal story that will continue to reverberate, I think, around this country as he travels across the country and shares his message. And his wife has also been such a tireless advocate. They have 3 sons, and he does all of that while also, as a member of Congress, being on he's on budget, he's on oversight and small business. He has a wealth of knowledge from the private sector, which I love because he's a citizen legislator, not a career politician. He's a parent who's deeply involved in his children's lives, and he's also deeply involved in the issues that matter to us. So without further ado, I'm really honored to introduce Congressman BYRON.
I don't really like podiums. How's everybody doing? So, I typically don't know where I'm going to begin. So, Paris, hey man, it's good seeing you, brother. How you doing, man? I typically don't know where I'm going to begin, so we're going to start this way. Milton Friedman always said that there's 4 ways to spend money. The most efficient way you spend money is when you spend your money on yourself. And you guys know about that. When you spend your money on yourself, you want to make sure your suit looks good. You're spending the money right. How are my feet looking? Do my jeans fit right? Ladies, when you go to, you make sure you go to your person at the salon. You don't just take somebody's recommendation, or you just don't get stuck somewhere. It's the most efficient way because what you're looking for is quality, efficiency, and savings, because it's coming out of your pocket. He also said the most inefficient way to spend money is when you spend other people's money on other people. Because when you do that, man don't care or concern for quality, efficiency, or cost. What does it matter to me if I use Paris's money to make sure she gets her hair done? I don't care. It's not my money. How much does it cost? $500? $1,000? That's cool. Paris paying for it. Everything works out. I feel good because she got something. She doesn't know if it's the best because I picked it. And Paris is mad because I spent his money. He doesn't even know if he got the biggest bang for his buck. In public education, for the last 100 years in the United States, we have spent other people's money on other people. And in the mind and in the hands of the do-gooder or the politician, it sounds good. You guys have heard these remarks from people who, obviously, there's races in Georgia right now. We got a race in Florida right now, races all over the country. It sounds good. Politicians say things like, we've committed such and such extra $1 billion towards education. And people who just cheer that and be like, wow, that sounds phenomenal. That's great. Except if you go back to the fundamental principle of economics, which is the most inefficient way to spend money is when you spend other people's money on other people. So why school choice? Or better yet, why parental empowerment? Because if parents are at the table making decisions on behalf of their students, even if they're using tax dollars to do that, what they're doing is actually one way more efficient way than what's happening right now, is that they are using tax dollars, but they're spending it on their children, on themselves. So yeah, I could take Paris's money to go buy me a suit, but that's cool. Because even if I get his money, trust me, my suit's gonna look good. Because it's going on my body. Or if I have to go buy my son a pair of basketball shoes, or a pair of football cleats, and I'm using his money, trust me, they're gonna look good on the field, it's gonna have the most cushion, the best support, it's gonna be light as a feather, he could look like Kobe. He could play like Herschel. Shout out to Herschel. Anyway, so bring it back to it. So I think people typically don't understand why the conservative mind thinks this way. It's not that we don't want people to get educated. We fundamentally believe that the education of children is the bedrock for the future of the country. If you're going to use the root word of conservatism, if you're going to conserve the greatest nation man has ever known, the first thing you have to do is prepare the next generation to take the mantles of leadership, to take the mantles of science, to take the mantles of government, to take the mantles of industry, to take the mantles of finance, to take the mantles of culture and tradition. And the only way you can progress that forward consistently and conserve the nature and the traditions of the United States is to make sure that young people are educated writ large across the spectrum of the country. So that's why you don't have a debate about education overall in terms of spending on the future of children. The real debate now comes in who is actually spending the dollars? Who actually are making the choices with the dollars? Is it a superintendent and a handful of school board members, most of who don't read the agenda, don't really critique what the administration is doing? Too many school board members in the United States have become cheerleaders for the district as opposed to holding the district accountable to making sure that the best bang for the buck is going for the kids? Or is it the mom who might live, here in Marietta, might live in Atlanta, might live in Miami or Orlando or Chicago or New York or San Francisco or wherever, who has 2 kids, 2 jobs, and just wants to see the best for their child? Senator Loeffler actually explained a little bit of my story. I'm going to expound some more. I was that kid. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn's always here. Even in Georgia, Brooklyn is here, It's just a dang shame what they did to my city, but I'm from Brooklyn. And so my mom, she was a school choice mom. She was a school choice mom before school choice was cool. I'm a side note about my mom. I was actually talking with her last night. My mother's that lady where she would come into the classroom and she would, get me right. She had to do that about 1 or 2 or 5 times in my academic career as a young kid. And you would see like the door would open and close. And you know how kids are in a classroom. Everybody's eyes go to the door like, who's that? And when a mother comes in the classroom, everybody sees that mother except the child. Because you don't expect to see your mom come in the classroom. And then you're like, who's that? Oh, that can't possibly. Oh, no, it's her. But that's my mother. But the reason why she was so impassioned about how I was going about my studies and my behavior as a young kid coming up is because what she saw in me was something special. She saw a brilliance. She saw what, frankly, nobody else could see. And she believed in that. And so she decided to sacrifice a car and sacrifice vacations to make sure that me and also my sisters got the best education possible. When I was in public school in Brooklyn, New York, PS 235, she took me out. She said they weren't challenging you. And I've asked her about it several times. I asked her every now and again because I got to make sure I get my story straight. Because, I was super young. I was like 6 years old. So I'm like, Mom, why'd you take me out again? She was like, Byron, they just weren't doing right by you. She said, what they were doing was fine, but you're my only son. I needed more than 5. You would have gotten something, but you needed so much more. And so that's the decision she made in 1984 in Brooklyn, New York. So she put me out, she put me in a small black private school. The small black private school was actually steeped in classical education. I know that now. At the time, it was just school. We were just in there. You know, you had a bunch of grades in the room. One of my friends, I didn't know he was 3 grades older than me until we got to high school and I ran into him. And I was like, man, Kirby, what's up, man? I didn't know you were coming here, man. It's cool to be freshman. He's like, freshman? I'm a senior. Oh, I missed that one. But she invested in me because she believed in me. Every parent believes in their child. Everyone. I have 3 sons. I invest in my kids, even in times where I don't think they really deserve it because they being silly. But I invest in them because I see their potential, even the potential they cannot see. And we know this is the heart of the parent. We know this is the desire of every parent in the United States. Forget just the United States for a moment, of every parent in the world. They see the special genius that God has put into their child, that they have innately been blessed with. And if here in America we decide, as a people, as a body politic, to put parents at the forefront of the decisions for their children, not just will their lives take off, but our country will take off as well. You see, our country requires the best scientists, the best engineers, the best doctors, great attorneys, even though, we'll leave attorneys alone. It needs political leaders who are steeped in history and economics and logic and reasoning. It requires clergy with a deep understanding of human intellect and the human transition through time, combined with their studies of the Bible or of the Quran or of the Talmud, to lead their flock going forward in the future. It requires young people with the intellect of the sciences. It requires young people with the intellect of carpentry, of electrician work, of plumbing. It requires young people with the mind for finance and banking and entrepreneurism. Because you cannot continue a society without continuing an economy. And you cannot continue an economy without an educated public who understands all the underpinnings of what drives an economy. And that's where education comes into play. I always find it with the people on the other side of the aisle, people who typically don't agree, because, I'm a conservative, and there are some people on my side of the aisle who don't agree with parental empowerment. They don't agree with it. They think that how it's been is actually a good thing. And to that, I always say to them, look, when we created the traditional public school system, we were transitioning kids from the fields to the factories. Well, I don't know about you, but kids aren't in fields anymore. They're not. Now we're having to transition kids from the screen to the information age. From YouTube to actually being a YouTube influencer. From Roblox, and what the other game was, I used to say Madden, but these kids don't play Madden no more, Corey. They don't play, like when we were kids, we would be on Madden, and you would play, and whoever loses got to get off the sticks. And so you would be mad if you missed a field goal at the end of the game. Sorry, sidebar. But we have to transition kids into the information age, into the technological age. That's where we are as an economy. And so what is required is for parents to have an intimate choice in the future of their child, to help their child actually find their talents, find their strengths, and put them in the environment so that they can chase their dreams with the strengths that God has given them. You can't do that in a top-down authoritative system, because the system is mostly concerned with itself. The system is concerned with the perpetuation of itself. The system is concerned with what the grades look like overall for the system. Y'all saw the name scores. I saw them too. And they're abysmal. It's terrible what has happened to children in the United States the last couple of years. But something like this is only possible when you have a top-down authoritative system. Because if people had the ability to make purchasing decisions for themselves, you would have had a whole lot of people say, you know what? PS 235 sounds good, but I have to get over here to classical prep because they're open and they're educating kids. And my girlfriend down the street told me that her son is doing way better in there than my son is doing in his school. So I got to move Johnny because that's what's best for him. I think the other part of this debate is teachers. People on the other side will say, oh, well, you don't care about teachers. Well, that's not true. I want teachers to be treated like the professionals that they are. But the funny thing happens when you have employees in a locked system, those employees aren't treated as professionals. They are treated as commodities. I was talking with a group of teachers one time and I said, listen, you guys want to make a lot of money, right? They're like, yeah, absolutely. We should be valued. And I said, I agree. You should be valued. They go, you're a professional, right? Yeah, absolutely. We're professionals. I agree. You are professionals. I said, so check this out. I was like, you're a professional? They go, yes. I said, well, I'm a professional. They go, really? I said, yeah, this is when I was still in finance. I was in the state legislature, which is part-time. They don't pay anything, so I still have my job. I was out here making money in the finance world doing what I do. I said, you're a professional? I'm a professional. I said, guess what? They go, what? The difference between my profession and yours, I don't have a union contract. You do. So the skies could be the limit for me, but also I gotta deal with the underside of it. The floor could also be the bottom. I could be out on the street making nothing, but I can also go up and make whatever I need to make. It's all based upon how I handle my business. I said, could you deal with that agreement? I said, because honestly, every professional in the world has to deal with that agreement. If you want to be a professional, you have to take the downside risk. If you want to be a commodity, then you don't get the upside. And they're like, well, that's not fair. I said, do you know what a barrel of oil is today? And at the time, a barrel of oil, I think, was $62 a barrel at the time. I said, well, a barrel of oil is a barrel of oil. It doesn't matter if it comes out of Russia. It doesn't matter if it comes out of Texas. It doesn't matter if it comes out of Anwar. It doesn't matter if they pull it out of Venezuela. It doesn't matter if it comes out of Saudi Arabia. Once that barrel comes out the ground, depending on the price of the day, that's what it costs. It doesn't matter if it's light sweet crude, the light stuff that's good, easy to refine. It doesn't matter if it's super sandy, where you got to go through a larger refining process. It doesn't matter if you pull it out of another country where they don't care about environmental standards and the like. The barrel is the barrel is the barrel is the barrel. I said, are you a barrel? These teachers looked at me, not me. I'm better than that teacher down the street that they just brought in because I have experience. And I said, so your experience should be valued. She goes, absolutely. I said, so you should be a professional. I am a professional. I said, so can you live without the contract? In a school choice environment, it's not that teachers are not valued. It's that I don't want to say this. What's the thing that trapeze artists use? The net. The net is not there. You are in a school and you're valued. I want principals to look at staff and say, I want to go get the best. This gentleman just came out of Harvard. He's a mathematics major. I want you to teach calculus because you know math. I want you to teach calculus. And you know what? I'll pay you $85,000 a year. I'll pay you $95,000 a year because you know calculus. I think the biggest thing for people to understand in this argument is that life is not fair and life is not equal. But if you have an environment where people's own drive and competition is allowed to thrive, then what you actually end up with is the best. And the best is what is required for children today and going forward. I don't make any bones about things being perfect because that's impossible. And anybody that tells you it's possible to have perfect is lying to you. Because even the person who's saying that they can give you perfect ain't perfect. So just by default, that person's gonna screw it up. We got a lot of people in politics who are screwing it up because they're not perfect. They have their own desires, their own wants, their own needs. It takes me back. I know I started with Milton Friedman, so I'm going to go back to Milton Friedman. It reminds me of his interview with Donahue years ago. Oh, that was 50 years ago now. Well, shoot, might be longer than that. Almost 60 years. You don't want to go that far back? I had to watch it on YouTube. It was before me. You know, I was in 1978. That was before me. But essentially what Milton Friedman said was, you know, Donahue's like, well, aren't you concerned about people who are just greedy? And he was like, what is greed? He was like, name a society that doesn't run on greed. Russia doesn't run on greed. China doesn't run on greed. Where are these people who are going to organize society for you? Where are they? Like, I know you, Corey, you're nice, and I don't even trust you to do that. What I do trust are people to make decisions in their individual lives. What I do trust is that when you give parents the power to make choices for their children actually end up better off. If you give parents the input, a funny thing happens. The parent is more engaged because they are the ones that are driving the choices. And we all know in this room, and we all know around the world, that parental involvement is the number one needed ingredient for child success. If the parent's involved, you know that kid's got to do something. The kid's got to do something. Man, if the parent's involved, kid can't come home not doing homework. You might get away with that for a week. But then somebody starts checking. I got an email from your teacher. Sorry, this is a personal story now. My sons are going to be so mad at me. I got an email from your teacher. What in the world are you doing? But that is because when parents are engaged, their children have to be alert. You see, I think with our movement, the school choice movement, the parental empowerment movement, however you want to phrase it, the one thing we want is the betterment of children, because the betterment of children is a better America. That's right. The betterment of children is a flourishing America. The betterment of children is a prosperous America. And that prosperity is not bound by zip codes. That prosperity is not bound by race. That prosperity is not bound by gender. That prosperity is not bound by religion. That prosperity is boundless. And any society with a boundless prosperity is a society where all can rise, where all can thrive, where all can succeed. So don't be afraid of advocating for choice. Don't be afraid of advocating for parental empowerment, because that is the future of America. That's what's going to send us into the next wave of American greatness. That, to be blunt now, to bring geopolitics into this, that is how we will remain number one in the world and beat the Chinese. Because trust me, the Chinese want to beat us. And if you don't think that's real, come on, get right. Get right. That's how we do it. So I just wanted to share with you my perspectives. That's why I believe what I believe. Last thing I'll say on this, and I'll say this one for the people who still subscribe to traditional public schools. And again, I'm not mad at them. I'm not a charter guy anymore. I'm a all of the above guy. Because what is needed is an economy of education. Just like we have an economy for telecommunications. Aren't these things cool? Shoot, I was watching HBO Max. I was watching House of the Dragons earlier today. These things are cool. For people who wonder if the public school system will survive, the answer I say is yes. Now, will it dominate the way it does? No. But they have more buildings, they have more chairs, they have more, well, they use whiteboards now, or those electronic boards. I was going to say blackboards. See, I was going to date myself. You know, I had to bust the erasers. I had to do that a couple times, like one or two times. But they will survive, and they will still be here tomorrow because they're the dominant player in the field. They're Walmart. They're everywhere. People will choose them. But I think what I want people who are in the public school system to understand, and this is more the administrators and the teachers, is that I don't want a choice because I hate you.
I want a choice because I want a choice. And actually, me having a choice as a parent only makes you better.
That's right.
It only makes you better. I'm a sports fan. I love sports. I'm an NBA guy. I love the fact that the season just started. My Lakers are 0-4. It's going to be a long season. Man, listen, I'm a fan, okay? I've been through the troubled years. I've been through the championships. We're having the time right now. I don't think the NBA has ever had a better league. Top to bottom talent. I don't think it's ever had it. The level of talent in the league right now is way better than when the Celtics won 8 straight. It's just the level of talent significantly better. Why? There are more options. There are more choices. There are more abilities for players to get better. It's not just tied to did you play high school basketball and that's it. Now you got parents, and I'm one of them. Man, I got a son in AAU. I'm about to have 2 sons in AAU. He's got this trainer on that day. He's got that trainer on that day. I can send my son to this private gym. And parents are doing this all across the country. Is that a bad thing? No. It's more choices, and more choices lead to more productivity, and more productivity leads to better product down the line. So for the people in the public school system who are scared or concerned, who don't want to see their cheese be moved, relax, baby. Y'all, Walmart. All I want to see is a Target. All I want to see is a Target. I want Publix's. I want Albertsons. I want the options. I know I said that was the last thing, but this is really, really the last thing. I do this, y'all, so forgive me.
All right.
This is really, really the last thing. The federal government decided a long time ago that it needed to get out of the food business. I was on those lines when I was a young kid. I got government cheese, and that thing sucked. It was bad. I had government peanut butter. That thing was awful. You had to stick the knife in and stir it because the oil was all at the bottom. They had the salt mix wrong, so sometimes it was super salty and sometimes it wasn't no salt at all, and it tasted bad. My sons got a jar of organic peanut butter and they were freaking out. What's that at the bottom? I was like, oh, that's oil. This is natural peanut butter. You have to stir it. Stir it? Where's the Skippy? This is what they were talking about. Stir it? Like, no, this is actually better for you than Skippy. I don't care about better. I don't want to stir it. Anyway, another side point. The federal government got out of food. They decided a long time ago, somewhere probably around 1985, 1986 maybe, that it was better to just give people these things called food coupons. And for you to go to a supermarket and buy your food yourself versus the government manufacturing and labeling and distributing food. Funny thing happened when they did that. Nutritional value actually increased. Government waste actually decreased. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's the federal government. We know how to waste money there. But if it's good enough for how you eat, isn't it good enough for how you learn? Save that for somebody who's tied to the public school system. I gave that one to you. That's for free. Put that in your bag and use that later. Because if we do it in food, we should do it in education. And it's been better for everyone. As somebody who's on the SNAP program, it used to be a food stamps program, and you used to get the book, and the brown ones were 1. I think the green ones were 10, or the green ones blue. It's been a long time, y'all. I used it. I've been there, done it. Grew up. That's how it was. Okay? And then you had the WIC. You had WIC coupons. WIC still exists. And so you would go to the store, you would pull your stuff off, and you would hand that off. Ask somebody today if they want the federal government, if they want to get in a line and go get food, or do they want the little EBT card? They just want the little card. Go ask them which one they want. If you say, no, we're going to get rid of this EBT card, we're going to go back to you getting in line for food. People are like, are you crazy? They'll be like, hell no, I ain't doing that. If it's good enough for food, which we put in our body, isn't it good enough for education, which we put in our mind? Folks, In our movement, we have the arguments, we have the messaging. We just have to have the will to see it through. Georgia, you got a nice little thing on you. You were important over there, Wes. I can see that from here. Georgia, you just have to have the will to do what Florida does, baby. I'm just playing with you. I'm playing with you, Georgia. I'm playing with you, Georgia. I'm not playing, but I'm being kind. Every state just has to have the will to see it through. Because if you give people that opportunity, if you give them that choice, if you empower those parents, they'll be so grateful for it. And even the teachers, they'll be happy as well, because they'll have more choices and they'll have more options of where to work. It's better for everybody. It makes for a better America. So that's why I'm here to be with you. God bless y'all. Let's continue to fight. Let's continue the mission.